Talk Radio.
Chiamo Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Neye Odwirafo da, Medinde Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Akwamumai Maruka Itifimu Odwirafo. That means greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is Odwira Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in. We apologize for the late start. We had to make a short change in schedule. We normally are on at 9 p.m. Eastern. We had to push it back to 9:30 for tonight. So we're posting links in the chat room. If you have a question on the phone line, just hit the number 1, and we can connect. We will see that your hand is raised, and we'll connect with you. And appreciate you turning in. When you go to the Nhoma page, the Nhoma link, that is where you will find the publication we will be dealing with tonight. And when you scroll through the Nhoma link is the publications page of our publication, of all of our publications, the publications page of the website. You can get to the book on Hoodoo directly from there. It's a free download. We'll put the direct link in the chat room as well. And we're putting that in there right now. And we just also want to send out a message right quick, just to let the individuals know who didn't see that we had to start late, and we just had to make that change like a little bit over, about an hour ago. So we just want to send this out real quick, make sure everybody is on board with the change in time, and then we will get to it. In the meantime, we do have 3 shows on a weekly basis: Joda, Benada, and Awukuda, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Akanfo Nanasom, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestry Religion, on Mondays. Then we also have, of course, Ojirada Purification Day, which is today. Then we deal with Ekwa Marketplace on Wednesdays. Akanfo Nanasom, we are in the midst of a multi-part series dealing with the Akradin Bosom, the Abosom that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies of the Akhan 7-day week. We're dealing with that. We just did part 4 last night, part 5 next week. So we're going through that information in detail based on our articles. We have 11 articles dealing with the 11 divinities, the Abosom, that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, which govern the 7-day week in Akhan culture. We are named after these Abosom, so we're going into detail about that. And just Akanfo Nanasom in general, dealing with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestry religion because of the misinformation that is propagated not only in the Western Hemisphere, but also by individuals who are Akanfo or Akhan people on the continent who have been infected by Christianity, Islam, white culture over the past few hundred years, and those infections have been woven into Akan culture and what's being promoted as Akan culture by individuals on the continent who were born and raised on the continent, speak the language, and raised in families that were dealing with priesthood and priestesshood and so forth. You have a number of these individuals who are promoting false information, infected information. So that's when we talk about ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion, we're dealing with a proper understanding of cosmology rooted in our ancient culture, which goes back to ancient Khanit, ancient Nubia, Kamit, and so forth. And then we deal similarly on Benada Tuesdays with Ojira, which means purification. We don't only focus on the Akhan tradition, but we focus on Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut ancestral religion in general, and different aspects of the culture, how every aspect of our lives with regard to culture, ancestral religion, ancestral culture, and nation building, restoration are impacted by our embrace of our ancestral religious tradition. So we go into detail, purifying, giving proper information with regard to cosmology, ritual practice, true historical information, text from ancient Kamit and Khanit and so forth, details about that. And then we also deal with Egua Marketplace on Wednesdays, showcasing a business, product, service, organization. Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut people showcase their business. Individuals come on the show that are serving the Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut community, the African Black community, in a positive fashion, but also are promoting our ancestral values in the process. Not pseudo-culture, not Hinduism or Judaism, Hebrewism, Christianity, Islam, Moorishism, extraterrestrialism, none of that nonsense. Promoting our ancestral values, authentic ancestral values in the process. So that's what we deal with on Egua Marketplace Day. All right, so we've sent out a couple of emails here, made sure everybody is made aware. We started a little bit late. So we just released our new book. The book is called Hoodoo People, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, meaning Africans in North America, Akan Custodians of Hoodoo from ancient Hoodoo, Udunu land, Khanit, Nubia. So the basis of the text, and we just released it 2 days ago on Kwesi Adai, which was a special Kwesi Da, meaning Sunday. It is an Kwesi Adai, an ancestral observance that we have every sixth Kwesi Da, or every sixth Sunday in our Akan culture. This Kwesi Adai was, a special one because we released the book powered by our Nanano Nsamanfo, our spiritually cultivated Akhan ancestresses and ancestors and so forth. We released the book on this day, and what we have done is, through the direction of the Nsamanfo, finding specific information, being able to verify that, investigate it, reproduce it, and put it out to the community. We showed that the term hoodoo, which is often used as a catch-all term for quote-unquote African-American folk magic, misdefined as African-American folk magic, or African-American superstition, or African-American folk magic with, combined with quote-unquote Native American practices and European practices all woven together, all of that kind of nonsense. These are false definitions. Hoodoo was brought to North America by Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, from Afuraikai during the Mmusuo Kese, the great perversity, the enslavement era. That is the term we use in the Akan language for the enslavement era. The Mmusuo Kese, Kese means great, and Mmusuo means a great moral evil, perversity. So the Mmusuo Kese, during that period, Akan people brought to North America, and of course Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and so forth. But those who were brought to North America, we brought the Hoodoo religion. That is a term for the Akan religion. But we go further and show that Hoodoo is not only the Akan, is an Akan term, but you'll find the exact same term in ancient Kamit and Khanit, ancient Egypt and Nubia, referencing the same thing, and actually a name of one of the titles of Nubia, Sudan, and so forth, as well as the title of the people. This is information that until we published it, just published it a couple of days ago, no one had that information because that was not yet discovered. So our Nsamanfo directed us to this information. We investigated, found it, were able to prove it, verify it, and then, of course, we released it. And, of course, that is the process whereby we put forward all of the information that we release on Odwirafo.com. For the individuals who tuned in later, if you're in the chat room, if you would like to have a question, or you'd like to make a comment, interact in the chat room, you must do so by logging in with a username, because you can't do so as a guest. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one very quickly in Blog Talk, and then you can interact in the chat room. If you are on the phone line, just hit the number 1 if you have a question or a comment, and then we'll see that your hand is raised and we can connect with you. All right, so we just posted the link for the ebook version of the book. So this is the 16th book that we have released. We have 16 books out in soft cover, and we also have the ebook version. The ebook versions of all 16 of our books are free downloads. We make them available for free for our people. The soft cover versions, we do print in-house on our own printers in color, and we do sell the soft cover versions. They range between $8 and $11. So we have 9 of the books are $9, 5 of them are $10, one of them is $11, one of them is $8. So the majority of them are $9 out of all 16. We also have an option whereby when people order 10 or more books, sometimes people order 10 out of the 16, 11 out of the 16, 12 out of the 16, 13, 14, 15, or the whole 16-book set. Any order of 10 books or more of the softcover versions is automatically 30% off. So, for example, if you order 10 books, like the first 10 books that we released, instead of paying $96 for 10 books, you would be paying $66 for 10 books, basically $6.60 per book. And when you get up to 16, it's basically $105 for all 16 of our books. Of course, that's less than $10 per book. So we have that permanent option. And then finally, we also have the no quadefo distributor option. If you would like to generate income for yourself independently as an entrepreneur, you can become no quadefo, one who distributes truth. That's the term we use for distributor. You purchase the books wholesale from us at 30% off, and then you can sell them retail to your friends, family, co-workers, those who you work with in prevention groups, intervention groups, various other capacities. The books, once people see them, they typically sell themselves. So it doesn't matter what your past work history is. If you'd like to begin to generate income for yourself, as well as impacting the community in a positive fashion, and this is a way that we can, people come to Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut ancestral religion. Nanasom, which is Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, African ancestral religion. Yes, we talk about the culture. Yes, we talk about the cosmology. Yes, we talk about how to apply these things to our lives to reorient ourselves spiritually so our thoughts, intentions, and actions can be in alignment with divine order. But part of that process is when our people come to us and they need assistance with regard to generating income, supporting themselves, and so forth. When they come to us, we can say you can begin working instantly. It doesn't matter what your previous work history is, how long you've been out of work, or whatever it is, or your education level. It does not matter. You come to Nanasom, you can begin to work instantly. So that's one of the things we do. And we have, when you look on the Akan page, we'll put the link for that as well. Our institution from which all of our work, broadcasts, presentations, books, we have over 60 articles as well that you can download as well. Everything is born out of Akan, which is our institution. We're working to establish a physical space, Akan Dime, for our institution. So when you make a purchase of one or more of the softcover books, you are also you're not only receiving a book, but you're also at the same time assisting us in establishing our center where we can expand our reach to the community. Therefore, we have more classes on a regular basis outside of the 3 nights a week on Blog Talk Radio. People will be able to come to the center as well. We'll have employment opportunities, specifically dealing with the publishing arm where we're doing the printing. We do the publishing, printing, of course, cutting, shipping, and all of that. People will be able to work in that capacity. And then the entrepreneurship piece as well, which is consistent, is already going on. So, and we'll also be live streaming all the classes as well as any workshops. And all of our workshops are free. All of our classes are free. When people come to our presentations, whether we're at home or we do presentations in different cities, different states, we do not charge our people admissions fees to come hear us speak, and we always give away a free copy of one of our softcover publications to everyone who comes out. So we'll be able to expand that process. All of the conferences, presentations, classes, and so forth will be free at the center, and we will live stream those for those who are not able to come, participate physically. So give us 1 second, and we'll be right back. Okay, so looks like we're going to take one call real quick, and then we're going to get into the presentation. Okay, Michiawo number 9332, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, I can hear you better now, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. No, I was just I was looking at listening to the topic you were presenting, and I had a question from, I'm an Ethiopian by descent, so I'm I guess directly African, and when I see these issues being brought up from African Americans here, and they bring up African beliefs and spirituality and things, the thing I wonder is what is your primary need, or what is your desire to even feel like you need to connect back to that?
You said, what is the primary desire to connect back to ancestral religious practices?
Yeah, like what led you to that place where you felt like you needed to go back and find, the African belief systems? Well,
and it's a good question. What you'll find is that those traditions, ancestral religion, we never lost them. And this is the key about what we're talking about tonight. So when we talk about, for example, the key with regard to dealing with the forces in nature, the spirit forces that animate the sun, moon, stars, oceans, black substance of space, rivers, fire, thunder, lightning, earth mother, and so forth, as well as our ancestresses and ancestors who have been with us ever since we've been here. The key to understanding and harmonizing with them is spirit possession, spirit communication, Akom and Nkom, as we say in the Akan tradition. That has been going on not only on the continent, but when we migrated here, we were forced to migrate here. We're still possessed by our ancestresses and ancestors. We're still possessed by the forces in nature. Even when we have lost a knowledge of the language itself, those spirits still possess our people. They still communicate directly with our people. They still heal people and show us how to procure medicine from the forest and heal our people, even when we're on the plantations. After we left the plantations, we're growing up in the inner cities and so forth. That has never stopped.
You're talking about the witch doctors, right? That's what you're referring to.
Well, and we're gonna get into that and give proper definition, because
in Africa, that's what we actually refer to those people as. Like, as an African, I can tell you, in Africa, the way we view some of those ancient beliefs are, a lot of those are antiquated in the sense that people learned what that really is over time, and they come to realize, like, for example, you guys bring up Kemet and Nubia, and you guys try to present it as if the Egyptians and the Nubians somehow had this great religion or great civilization that somehow all us Africans are somehow tied to, or that this is this ideal model. That's completely beyond anything that's true. I mean, no Africans really believe that, especially if you're from that region. I'm from that region of Africa. Western Africans
this is what we
believe that, but East Africans know that. I'm from that area. That's completely untrue.
No, actually, it's 100% accurate. And what we do in our publications, what we show in detail is showing what you just said is totally false. And we prove that in detail. There are many people across the continent, west, south, central, east, north, who have been infected with Islam, infected with Christianity, infected with Hebrewism, and their perception of our culture have been distorted by that white culture. So the reason we put these...
When you say that, then it still begs a question. Like in Ethiopia, we became a Christian empire by the 3rd century A.D. and that was without any European influence whatsoever. So before the Europeans set foot on our soil, we already had, because our belief systems were tied directly to Jerusalem, and we had regular convoys.
Absolutely, that's 100% false. 100% false.
True.
The only reason you have Christianity
your sources,
is because
sir,
of Europeans.
You cannot tell people from that area, from outside sources who have agendas who are trying to propagate a particular idea and trying to have revisionist history. Like, if I were to come to you, where you're from, and retell your history, and then try to tell you that it's not true, I mean, come on, sir. Let's be honest. Who's going to know their own history?
If you were telling the truth, then that would be perfectly fine. And this is why we put the information out, because what you're speaking is the kind of misinformation that's being propagated. Your people were compromised in the 3rd century AD. That's why they embraced the false religion. Now, there are people in your region who continue to practice their traditional culture. The Oromo people still practice their traditional culture, those who have not become infected. There are other people in Ethiopia, people in Eritrea, different areas who practice their traditional culture who did not accept the infection of the white Nile Spring. When your people accepted Christianity,
was untrue, because my family, my mother's side is Oromo. They were from that region. I know that specifically. My father is Eritrean.
Okay.
So I know that specifically.
Okay. And
I've lived in that land for nearly 2 years. I went back there and lived there. Everybody's either Christian or Muslim. Anyone who practices the whole spiritist or animist stuff, those are witch doctors that practice on the side that some people go to, but we all know the spirits that they're using. Everyone knows it. Those are demonic spirits.
Actually, you don't know it, and this is why we put this. This is why we put the information out.
People who've had all kind of crazy situations happen who go to those people, it's a known fact, right? The only reason people go to them is if they're motivated
for some selfish
purpose, whether it's greed,
this is what we're going to do.
Find someone to marry. I mean, again, sir, I know that I'm from that culture. I've lived there. Have you even lived in those lands?
Okay.
Have you ever been there?
Check this out.
I'm providing the listeners.
We don't want to waste too much time. We don't want to waste too much time. So this is what I'm going to say. What you're talking about is the reason why we put this information out, because everything you're saying is 100% false, and your people have been compromised.
I don't have an agenda.
I'm
not trying to propagate a myth and provide some people a new religion who are trying to somehow find an identity.
Okay, so we cut him off, and this is the reason we put the information out. This is one of those individuals who've been compromised by the white Nile Spring, and he's spitting out foolishness based on how he's been compromised. So this is why we have the publication. There are many Oromo people who actually practice traditional religion, and they have rejected Christianity. The Ethiopians who accepted Christianity, they were compromised. It doesn't matter who went back to 300 AD. You were compromised. You were one of the first groups who were compromised. So that's a dubious distinction. That's not something to be proud of. That is something to be ashamed of. And people who are actually getting back into their ancestral religions, even in Ethiopia, they are rejecting Christianity. Ethiopians are not connected to Jerusalem. When you look at the Kukutuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, we prove where that fake story of Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik comes from, which this individual does not know, if they were speaking, truthfully about who they are. So this is exactly why we publish what we publish. So we don't entertain the nonsense. All right. So we got one more quick call, and then we're gonna get to the book. Okay. Number 5856. You had a question or comment?
What's up, Brother Kwesi?
What's up?
I was just listening to the caller just now, and I just want to make a quick comment. You see, if a Chinese person was born in Jamaica and they met up with another Chinese person in Jamaica, and they had children, and children came to America, and they have children in America, them Chinese would still be considered Chinese. And the thing is, us Africans that was born outside of Africa, for some reason the cracker has made us into all type of things. African American, Jamaican, Trinidadians, and wherever black people go, they seem to take on the name of that place. Sometimes you hear people talking about people that's French, and you find out that they black people. So if a Chinese got 10,000 descendants, they still Chinese. So I want the person that just called to know that even when we're born outside of Africa, Africa is born within us. We're still African. You got people in Jamaica, where I'm from, that practice traditional African religion and spirituality beyond that nonsense that some people on the continent is practicing, like Christianity, Islam, and homosexuality. I guess in a few years, if they get their homosexual agenda across, then when we here in the Western world talk against homosexuality, a brother like that will call and say that we're practicing homosexuality on the continent, and I'm from the continent, so I know what I'm talking about. We are born in the West, but Africa is in us. Thanks, brother. Keep it going.
Okay. I mean, I say we appreciate that call, and what we that's a perfect example. The caller made first caller just demonstrated exactly why we put the information out. So we always say in various publications and broadcasts, initiations don't matter, lineage doesn't matter, people from the continent who have been brainwashed doesn't matter, as you heard from the individual. The fact that somebody bringing up Jerusalem in association with Ethiopia shows how colonized the mind still is, or talking about witch doctors and all that kind of nonsense. So this is why we put the information out, to correct that. We have had people, by the way, just so people understand, that's one individual who identified himself being from Ethiopia, but we've also had other individuals who are from Ethiopia that we've been in contact with, and they understand exactly what we're talking about and are so grateful for the information we put out. Some of the people are Oromo, as well as others, and they're going back to their ancestral religious traditions and rejecting the foolishness of Christianity. Those who embrace Christianity have an enslaved mind, a colonized mind, and this is why they, characterize ancestral religion in a negative fashion, because they've embraced the perversity of Christianity. Blackening up Christianity doesn't make it real, doesn't make the fictional character Jesus real, any of that nonsense. So for people who want details about that kind of information, Kuku Tuntun, the ancestral jurisdiction, we go into detail proving that Jesus never existed, Yeshua never existed, Moses, Aaron never existed, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael never existed, Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik never existed. So you have no connection to Jerusalem at all. So let's get to the work. So if you go to page 2 on the Hoodoo, and the name of the book for the people who came in late, we put the link, Hoodoo People, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans in North America, Akan Custodians of Hoodoo from Ancient Hoodoo, Udunu land, Khanit, Nubia. So you go to page 2, and we get into the introduction of the text. So, as we were saying earlier, we brought the Hoodoo religion. Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans, black people in North America brought our Hoodoo religion and culture with us in our blood circles from Afuraikai during the Mmusuo Kese, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. Now the key is, as we were explaining to the first caller, this is an unbroken tradition which is not only intergenerational, but transcarnational. Transcarnational mean in this context. Transcarnational, this means that it was and is informed by the Abosom, which is the Akhan term for the forces in nature, and our Nananum Nsamanfo, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses an ancestor. So it's not like the fake religions like Christianity in all of its forms, including Coptic Christianity, Ethiopic Christianity, Eastern Orthodox, whatever it is, it's all fake. It's not like the fake religions where you join something and you participate in something. This is transcarnational. Our traditions are transcarnational. It is through the Abosom, the forces in nature, the divinities, that our ancestral religious traditions are established. This is true of all Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, or Africans wherever we are in the world. When the Abosom first possessed our ancestresses and ancestors via ritual and communicated the divine order of creation directly to them, our religious practice was established. When those first ancestresses and ancestors preserved what they were taught by the Abosom, the divinities, and transferred that tradition via protocols to their posterity without profanation, our religious practice was and is perpetuated. So that's key. Our knowledge of Nyamewa, Nyame, and Sheshe, which it simply means in the Akan language, the Great Mother and the Great Father, Supreme Beings, divine order or arrangement, our role in the divine order, the means by which we can ritually incorporate divine law and ritually restore divine balance to our lives, is replenished in every generation as the Abosom and Nananom Unsamanfo, meaning the deities and ancestral spirits, continue to communicate with us via spirit possession and spirit communication. Ancestral spirit possession includes communication with our ancient Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut ancestresses and ancestors up to our recently transitioned ancestresses and ancestors of good character. So, again, that's key. We don't go and look for a tradition, read books, and in a political fashion just start incorporating things. We are talking about transcarnational transmission of culture. Our first ancestresses and ancestors who were first possessed by the forces in nature, they learned directly from them. And they transferred what they learned when the Abosom spoke through our people. They taught our people how to procure medicine, how to heal, how to align themselves with divine order, their thoughts, intentions, and actions. Those first ancestresses and ancestors, those Nananom and Samafo, who preserved what they were taught and transferred that to the community without profaning what they were taught, they become the honorable ancestresses and ancestors. And those individuals transfer that information, and they continue to transfer that information to us through spirit communication, Nkam, spirit possession, Akhan. So not only do our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors of ancient times still possess our people today. We play drums in America. Even on the slave plantations, playing drums or clapping or whatever, we get possessed by our ancestresses and ancestors. They move through our bodies and communicate with us. Show us what herbs to pick to heal someone of a disease. Show us what to do to heal someone of a disease with regard to mineral life as well, or animal life, glandular medicine, whatever it is, to restore balance to our lives. So those ancient ancestresses and ancestors all the way up to our most recently departed ancestresses and ancestors still communicate directly with us in every generation, of course. But also the same Abosom, the forces in nature. That's just the Akan term for forces in nature, the Abosom. In Yoruba, they call them the Orisha. In Vodou, they call them the Vodou. In the Fon and Ewe languages, it's Vodou. Igbo is Arusi. Different terminology, still dealing with the forces in nature. They still possess our people, not only on the continent, but here in the West. This is why our traditions were maintained, because we still were possessed by the Abosom. Akom and Nkam, spirit possession, spirit communication. When you get direct information from the embodiments of divine order, which are what the Abosom are, then you can learn how to harmonize your thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order, because they embody that in creation. We say whenever we have children, we have drawn one or more of our Nsamanfo, our ancestresses and ancestors, into the womb to return to our Sase Afua, our Earth Mother, once again. The knowledge of the religion and culture is written into their Okra, or Okrawa, their soul divine consciousness, by Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being. As they grow and develop, They access this ancestral knowledge and incorporate it into every aspect of their lives when properly acculturated. Through this process, they positively impact the lives of everyone in the community. This is transcarnational transmission of culture, the intergenerational spirit-genetic transmission of culture, which was and is impervious to being broken through the horrors of the Mmusuo Kese, the enslavement era. So every time you have a child that is an ancestor or ancestress who has returned, woven into the Kra, the soul, the divine consciousness of that child is the culture, and not only the culture, but the memory of everything they've experienced in previous incarnations. So when we return to the world through Bebra, through reincarnation, the Akan term for reincarnation, this is an ancient ancestral spirit returning. And encoded within that spirit is the culture. And all they have to do is access their memory, just like you can remember when you were 5 years old, because that is in your memory, that's in your spirit, that's in your sun. You can also recall what you were doing spiritually, ritually in previous incarnations. That is in your sun, the term, Akan term for spirit. That is true across the board. Everywhere Afuraitkaitnut people are in the world. It doesn't matter if it's East Afuraikai, West, Central, South, in the islands of the Pacific, in Papua New Guinea, in Australia, where our people are, in the Andaman Islands, in India, in South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and Europe, wherever black people are, spirit possession occurs, spirit communication occurs. Our culture is woven into our sun, our spirit. So we don't have to go and look for a culture. That's when you have a fake religion. You go join something, you go study up on something, somebody tells you something, and you go say, oh, I want to embrace this. We are encoded with the divine function we are given to execute in the world by the Supreme Being, and we're sent into the world to execute that function. That is the foundation of our culture, and culture simply means the way of life. This is why in our Khan tradition, Amamre, Amai means nation, Bere means way or manner. So the Amambre means the way or manner, Bere, of the nation, of the people. So that is culture. What is your way? The manner in which you operate through life. There are certain things that are acceptable and certain things that are not acceptable. Certain ways you need to move, certain things are not. That is woven into your spirit, and that expression becomes your culture. It is an expression of what has been encoded within you, and that is passed on and carried within you in every incarnation. So that is a transcarnational transmission of culture. So that's the key piece. We talk about the Akhan people in Ghana and Ivory Coast, about 11 million Akhan people in Ghana, about 9 million in Ivory Coast. One of the largest ethnic groups on the continent, one of the largest, of course, in the western part of the continent. Millions of us over hundreds of years were transported to South America, the Caribbean, Central America, North America, and Europe. So we carry our culture with us. In South America, for example, the Akan tradition is called Winti, and it actually comes from the term Huinti or Hinti, meaning to rouse or to wake up. Some people think it comes from Winti or wind, meaning the wind, but Huinti or Hinti in the tree language means to rouse or to wake up. That's talking about the arousing or waking up of the abosom, the forces in nature, the spirits animating creation, as well as the ancestresses and ancestors. So that's in South America, the Akhan in South America. In Suriname, for example, Akan people escaped enslavement, established maroon societies that remained independent from the 12,700s or 1700s up until today in certain areas. They've been independent ever since then, were never dragged back into slavery, established their own independent nations, continue to practice their ancestral religion, and their capacity to overcome enslavement was powered by the ancestral religion. The same is true in Jamaica. You'll find that popularly that the term for ancestral religion in Jamaica amongst the Akhan in Jamaica is Obia. That term Obia comes from Obai in the Akan language. Is often mistranslated as witchcraft in general. But Bayi has to do with really a higher, quote-unquote, in English would be psychic power, but spiritual power, the capacity to see beyond the physical senses, to hear beyond the physical senses, to see clairvoyantly your ancestors and ancestors, to hear them as well as the Abosom, to be able to engage in clear alience, clear audience, clear sentience, seeing, feeling, experiencing beyond the physical senses, being able to connect with the spirit realm, people who have that capacity. Now, you can use that simple capacity in a positive fashion or a negative fashion. It's a higher psychic, quote-unquote, power, but it is not the same as Tumi, which is the Akan term for divine spiritual power. So just because someone has they can see beyond the physical, they're more clairvoyant and so forth, that doesn't mean they're automatically in harmony with divine order. The only way you have access to the Tumi of the Abosom, the spiritual forces and natures, when you live in harmony with divine order. If you do not, then you don't have access to that higher level power. So, but the term Obaye, meaning that capacity to experience the spirit realm beyond the physical on a higher capacity, became the term that was used as a catch-all term, Obaye or Obia in Jamaica. Again, the Akan people established maroon societies in Jamaica, and they were able to free themselves from enslavement in the 12,700s, 1700s, and on. There are still independent maroon communities in Jamaica today. Some of them still speak aspects of the Akan language, still practice ancestral rituals and so forth. Their capacity to overcome enslavement was powered by their practice of the ancestral religion that they brought with them in their blood circle. If you look at St. John's Island in the Caribbean, now called the West Indies or the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Akan people there as well, specifically the Akwamu, which is a subgroup of the Akan people. You have Asante, people who are Akan, and Fanti, and Bono, and Denchara, and a number of different groups. Akwamu was one of them. The Akwamu Akan in St. John's Island in 12,733, which the Gregorian calendar 1733. They took over the entire island for several months. They waged war against the white enslavers and took over the entire island for 7 months. Several months, sorry. All of these revolts and independence movements were powered by our ancestral religion. The same is true, however, of the Akan people in North America. Very often we believe that, people in North America, we just lost everything. We lost our language, lost our culture, lost our ancestral religion, and we were just, empty vessels with nothing, and we just needed to come and be filled up with the fake traditions like Christianity or Islam, Hebrewism, Moorishism, all of that nonsense, or blackened up versions of that nonsense. And even going back into the early part of the so-called 20th century, there was this rise of Ethiopianism, people not only in the Caribbean, but even in North America, identifying with Ethiopia in the Bible and all of that because of being brainwashed, because of the meticulous manner in which the whites and their offspring decided they were going to force Christianity on our people. If you look at the book written by one of our brothers, Kamal Makesi Tahuti, How to Make a Negro Christian, where he breaks down one of the publications written by the whites and their offspring called The Religious Instruction of the Negro. After the rebellion of Okunfo Yao, which is also called Nat Turner, the whites and their offspring were shook up because of that massacre. They decided we're going to meticulously force Christianity and spread it amongst the entire quote-unquote slave population all over the South to make these people more docile slaves, more obedient, more accepting of their masters and so forth. So just like that happened then, and then we started looking into the Bible and pulling nonsense out about Ethiopia and Ethiopianism and calling ourselves, Ethiopian, African Episcopal churches and associating with Ethiopia based on the Bible. You had some of that same nonsense going on in the Caribbean, and then, of course, dealing with Haile Selassie and Menelik II, and it shouldn't be a Menelik II because there was no Menelik I because there was no Solomon and Sheba. So you have all of that going on at that time based on colonization, the colonization of the minds of our people. But some of our people held on to our tradition because it was carried in our blood circle. It's not something that we go and study and learn about. It's something that's within us that we bring out. So those who were colonized, they fell away. But in reality, written into your Kra, your soul, your divine consciousness, your Krawa, called Ka and Khanit and Kamit, is your ancestral culture. So those who tapped into that, they maintain the culture. That's true of people who practice Vodou, people who practice Juju and so forth, people who practice Hoodoo. So this is why we say the Akan religion in North America is popularly called Hoodoo. Demonstrated in this publication, the term Hoodoo is the same term used amongst the Akhan in West Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, referencing ritual healing, medicine, and the conjuring of the Abosom and Nsamampho. The term is Ndu in the Akwamu Tree dialect. Moreover, its roots are found in ancient Khanit, or Nubia, bearing the exact same meanings and also identifying the ancient Khanit or Akhani people, quote-unquote Nubian people, and the ancient land itself. So not only is the term Hoodoo, meaning root work, root doctor, root worker, medicine from roots and so forth, procuring that medicine, but also dealing with conjure. So sometimes the term for Hoodoo, they'll say, in English, they'll just call it conjure. He practices conjure. She practices conjure. Or they'll say, he practices root work. He's a root worker. He's a root doctor. Those same associations you find in the Akan language for the term Ndu, which specifically deals with root work, root medicine, medicine coming from the Earth Mother, but it also is the term for conjuring the spirits of our ancestors and the Abosom, the forces in nature. So the same term for the same practices. But it's also found in ancient Khanit in Nubia with the exact same meaning. And we produced the Medusa, the hieroglyphics in this book to prove that. So it shows that it's the same people with the same culture, with the same name, with the same practices from East Afuraikai all the way to West, Central and so forth, and into the Western Hemisphere. It's an unbroken tradition. So we proved that in the book. And then we showed some examples. Hoodoo, it was through Hoodoo that Akan people in North America were empowered to wage war against the white enslavers. This includes the New York Rebellion, 12,712, 1712 in the Gregorian calendar. 9 out of the 21 Afuraitkaitnut people who were captured after the rebellion in 1712 in New York. 9 out of 20 were found to have Akan Akradim, meaning Akan soul names. They were Kwesi and Kojo and Amma and Kweku and so forth. So there was a strong Akan presence in that New York rebellion in 1712. Numerous Akan people participated in the Great Dismal Swamp in Virginia, North Carolina, where we freed ourselves from enslavement, set up independent, sovereign communities in the Dismal Swamp, and lived there intergenerationally, and defended our territory. When the whites and their offspring sent their militias into the Dismal Swamp to try to drag our people back into enslavement, we were armed, we were ready, and we waged war against them. To the point where some of the whites and their offspring, not only did they stop sending militias into the Dismal Swamp, and at some point, there were, in some cases, at certain times, there were over 2,000 people living in the Dismal Swamp, and the whites and offspring are the ones who call it the Dismal Swamp. We saw it as an independent, free territory that we established. They began to trade with people in the Dismal Swamp, the whites and offspring, because they couldn't defeat the people. So while some people were on plantations, our people freed ourselves and were living independently and established an independent, sovereign territory that was intergenerational, meaning once they freed themselves from slavery, their children grew up in the swamp. They were not enslaved, and their children, their grandchildren grew up in the swamp, and they weren't enslaved either. So they lived free, powered by their ancestral religion. The great war waged by Okunfo Yao, warrior. Okunfo means warrior in Akan culture. Yao is one who was born on Yauda or Thursday under the governance of the Abosom or the divinity Yao, who was actually Heru in ancient Kemet and Hibioso in Vodun and so forth. In Southampton, Virginia, this is Nat Turner. We call him Okunfo Yao because he's a warrior, Okunfo, and we found that when we looked at his birth date, he was born on a Thursday, so he was a Yao. But most importantly, his grandmother was Akhan, and she was captured in Afuraitkaitnut and forced to enslavement in America. So he was an Akhan. He would have been called Yao if he had his proper name, and of course we refer to him as that. And he waged war against the whites and their offspring, of course. And his rebellion was a major rebellion, a major resistance movement, massacred about 60 of the whites and their offspring, sent shockwaves through the nation. The great uprising by another warrior, Okunfo Telemake, called Denmark Visi. He organized over 1,000 Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut to revolt against the white slavers in South Carolina, one of the largest organized revolts in the true history of America. Okunfo Telemake, or Denmark Visi, was also reported to have been Akhan. They often use the term Kuromanti in English when they're referring to people who are Akhan. Kuromanti is not the same as Goromanchi, as talking about the people in Burkina Faso and so forth. Kuromanti or Kuromanse is a region in today's Ghana, and that's the name of it because there was a major port and major area where, you know, people were being captured and sent off into enslavement. The whites and offspring knew about the port of Kuromanse, and because of that, they just said, you know, the Akhan people coming through that area, they would just say, since these people came through that region of Kuromansi, they would call them the Kuromansi Negroes. But they understood that they were Akhan, and they knew, you know, the different ethnic groups. But they used that as a catch-all title for Akhan people. When they say he was Kuromansi, they're saying he was Akhan. So the Okunfo Yao, which is Nat Turner. We also talked about Nana Araminta, which is Harriet Tubman, who led hundreds of enslaved Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut to freedom. Her descendants have confirmed Akhan ancestry via DNA, and this is why there's a statue of Harriet Tubman in Ghana today in the Asante region, because once they found out that she had Akhan ancestry, then that's what they did over there. But the key is she was Akhan as well, leading people out of enslavement. Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, leading our people out of enslavement and massacring the whites and their offspring. Okunfo Telemake, Denmark Visi, organizing over 1,000 Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut to revolt against the white enslavers in South Carolina and so forth, one of the largest organized, you know, movements in true history with regard to enslavement. So, spirit possession, spirit communication, ritual medicine for protection against gunshots and capture, and conjure were accounted as foundational components of the liberation movements of all of these individuals. Nana Araminta, Harriet Tubman, one of our ancestresses, one of our Akhan ancestresses, would get possessed by the spirits of the Nsamanfo. When she would come out of possession, she would know which direction to escape. She would go down into the south by herself and lead people escaping from those plantations. They would be sending dogs, militias after them. She'd never lost a quote-unquote passenger on the Underground Railroad. Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, they often try to characterize him as, you know, a super Christian and so forth. When the whites and their offspring are talking about him, and they rewrote his story and added a number of different things into his story, they focused on and tried to promote this idea of Christianity because they were trying to promote Christianity. The best way to promote that is to take one of your great warriors and say, well, actually, he was a Christian too. He was just misusing the doctrine. So if you honor your great warrior, that means you honor Christianity as well. So all you need to do is embrace Christianity and just embrace the way that we teach. In reality, he was Akhan. His mother, of course, his paternal grandmother was Akhan. When he talks about seeing signs and being directed spiritually to wage war against the whites and offspring, he was a child of Nana Yao. Nana Yao is an abosom, a warrior abosom, a leader, relentlessly challenges disorder, wages war against the enemy relentlessly, nonstop, uncompromising, confrontational. One of the Mrane or praise names of a Yao is Pereko, which means desirous of war, confrontational and warlike, relentless, nonstop. and will not be stopped. He was governed by that divinity. He was born under the governance of that divinity. That divinity governed his head. So when they're talking about the spirit spoke to them, he may have not known the specific Akan term for that divinity, but then maybe he did. But even if he didn't know the specific name, he knew that force in nature. When you communicate with the Abosom that governs your head, or the Orisha that governs your Ori, they direct you. They will manifest themselves and show themselves to you. They also possess, they communicate, they guide. So this is what was happening with him, as well as Denmark BC, and all of our people. So these are just examples. The whites in our spring, when they're writing about these individuals, they're not going to focus too much on the role of spirit possession, spirit communication, ritual medicine for protection against gunshots, dealing with conjure and everything else. They won't focus too much on that because they don't want us to focus on that. They don't want us to focus on the reality that because of that, because our embrace of ancestral religion and the motivation we had to move against our enemies and massacre our enemies, that is the reason why whites and their offspring were forced into the position and to take the position of abolition, to take the position of recolonization and repatriating our people to Liberia and establishing Liberia, as well as participating in Sierra Leone and so forth. The reason that they had to move toward emancipation, because we were massacring them. When somebody like Gabriel Prosser organizes 9,000 Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, to wage war against the whites and offspring, and even though he was ratted out by a Negro, one of these COINTELPRO Negroes who would like to say that, hey, we need to go back to Christianity because that's the real tradition, and we shouldn't embrace witchcraft and nonsense like that. When they saw thousands of people powered by ancestral religion, emboldened because they were given medicine showing that, that they would not be, destroyed by the whites and their offspring. They had the courage to move forward. White people were shook to their core. If you have somebody working in your house, doing your laundry, riding the horse and buggy and directing that, the stagecoach and everything else. You have somebody cooking your food. You have somebody nursing your child. And then it turns out that the people who've been working for you were part of that plan to massacre you. Every time you see a black person, you don't know if this is one of the people that were part of that plan. Or even if they were not part of that plan, if when they wake up tomorrow, they're going to get up and decide, today is the day to get the knife out the drawer and stab the cracker in the throat. Today is the day to kill the white baby. There are accounts when, people were nursing the little white babies and one of the sisters decided, hey, I'm going to kill this baby today, and she killed the baby and killed another baby. Now, they can go and kill her, but it's too late then. She already took out 2 of your cracker babies. So thousands of people organized, powered by ancestral religion. One of the things that came out in the court case when they were interviewing some of the quote-unquote conspirators or the organizers was that if things didn't go right, if the rebellion didn't jump off, if the resistance movement did not coalesce in the fashion that they wanted it to, the backup plan, the contingency plan was to poison the water supply throughout the city. They were just going to go scorched earth and kill everybody. That shook the whites and their offspring to their core. They already saw what happened with Haiti. They already saw what was happening in other parts of the southeastern United States when people were escaping from enslavement and massacring the whites and their offspring. They saw, of course, what would happen to great effect with Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner. So they were forced into the position of embracing abolition and promoting abolition, not because of the goodness of their hearts, but they knew that if they did not, we would rise up and massacre them. And their next goal, their contingency plan was once they moved towards abolition and emancipation, those who would be left, they would indoctrinate them with Christianity to make them mental slaves, economic slaves, political slaves, even though the physical chains were off. And that was the next phase. Our Kanfo ancestresses and ancestors liberated us from physical enslavement. It is on us now to liberate our people from mental enslavement, fake religion. So, we go into that truth tree. This is in the introduction of the book. And this is why we say hoodoo, as well as, and that's just dealing with the Akan tradition, but as well as voodoo, juju, and more, was the power that ended enslavement in North America, and is the power that is liberating the enslaved minds of our people today. We talk about, just like the term hoodoo is an Akan term, we brought that term and that culture with us. Voodoo, as in New Orleans voodoo and so forth, voodoo in the South, which simply means a divinity, a force in nature, comes from the Fon and Ebe language. So when the Fon and Ebe people were forced into this hemisphere, they brought their tradition with them, and they, of course, it is referred to as Vodun and voodoo and so forth. Juju is a Yoruba term dealing with ritual healing, medicine, spiritual work, and so forth. The Yoruba people forced into North America, they brought their tradition with them, popularly called Juju in North America. So initially, when you first begin to hear this person practices Juju, what they're saying is, I am Yoruba, and I'm practicing my culture. Initially, when you first begin to hear in North America, this person practices Vodou or Voodoo, what they're saying is, I am Fon, I am Ebe, I'm practicing my traditional culture. When you first hear people saying Hoodoo, I practice Hoodoo, they're saying, I am Akhan, and I'm practicing my traditional culture. Later on, these terms became interchangeable and just catch-all terms for ancestral religion in general, and amongst the whites and their offspring, criminality and witchcraft and sorcery and devil worship and so forth, because they hated the fact that we relied on our ancestral traditions to wage war, physical war, protect our people from being captured by the whites and their offspring, using that medicine to keep our people from being sold by the whites and their offspring, keep our people from being beat on the plantations by the whites and their offspring, but also not only defensive medicine to protect ourselves and heal ourselves, but offensive medicine, chemical and biological warfare, poisoning the food supply, poisoning the water supply. This is why our people the whites and our offspring do not want our people to re-embrace our tradition. When someone like George Washington Carver, as we said before, will go out into nature, and he said he received all of his knowledge from the spirit in nature, and then every morning when he would go out about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, learn directly from the spirit in nature, communicate with plant life and so forth, mineral life, then he would come back into the laboratory and replicate what he learned, and this is how he was able to transform agriculture nationwide in America and around the world, knowing that we had that capacity for Akom and Unkom, spirit possession, spirit communication. We will not only use that information to procure medicine to heal ourselves, but we'll use that knowledge to procure medicine to wage chemical and biological warfare against our enemy. And just like you had the precedent of the individual who was enslaved, who was working in the kitchen, preparing food, raising the children of the whites and their offspring, nursing them, working on the plantation, working near the water supply and so forth. That's a precedent that was set and that was used as warfare. We have people working all over America in the food industry, water filtration plants, everything else. So this is the kind of information they do not want our people to connect to make the connection between hoodoo as well as various forms of ancestral religion, offensive and defensive medicine. This is what they didn't want us to understand. Well, of course, it's too late because we understand it now. And more of our people are embracing it every second, every nanosecond. And we also mentioned the Gullah Geechee people. You'll find Igbo tradition, Umbundu, Congo traditions connected there as well. Establishing their culture, they brought the culture with them. It's not something where you go and ask people, teach me the culture. Your Nsamafu, your ancestors and ancestors teach the culture. So we go into some more detail about Akom and Unkom here. And this is all in the introduction. So we don't have to go through that piece. We kind of touched on that. But we do mention later in this introduction, authentic hoodoo has absolutely nothing to do with white Americans, white Europeans, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanics, white Arabs, white Hindus, or any other non-Afurakani, non-Afuraitkaitnut group. None of the Abosom, Orisha, Vodou communicate with the whites and their offspring, never have, never will. They didn't do that in ancient Kemet. They didn't do that in ancient Khanat. They didn't do that anywhere in Afuraitkaitnut where the whites and their offspring invaded. They never have and never will. They hate the whites and their offspring. They reject, repel the whites and their offspring, just like your immune system cells hate, reject, repel cancerous cells and isolate them from the rest of the cells and destroy them for the maintenance of your health, for the maintenance of order within your system. So anybody talking about quote-unquote Native American influences in Hoodoo, yes, there were people who interacted with pseudo-Native Americans, and that's infection. No different than some of our people embracing the Greeks during ancient Kemet. That was infection. That wasn't traditional culture. But if a brainwashed Negro embraced one of the Greeks, the Abosom did not participate. The honorable ancestresses and ancestors did not participate. They never possessed the whites and their offspring. They never communicated with them. They never gave them any information at all. And the same is true here. The same is true in Hoodoo. The same is true in Vodou. The same is true in the Yoruba tradition. All of these pseudo-white initiates, whether they're white Europeans, white Arabs, white Hindus, white pseudo-Native Americans who are not native at all, they're just invaders from Asia. When they arrived here, our people were already here. So they're not native or indigenous at all. They are invaders. They have nothing to do with our culture at all. Anything that they contribute is infection. The same is true with Europeans claiming that, Hoodoo has something to do with them, and we're going to get into that. It has nothing to do with any of these individuals. It's an ancient tradition that's carried within our blood circles as Afuraitkaitnut people and in our blood circles alone. As we will show, of course, it has nothing to do with the fictional cartoon characters of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Kabbalism, the Bible, Quran, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapadas, the Kebra Nagas, none of that nonsense. Hermeticism, metaphysics, extraterrestrialism, drug addict spirituality, sex cult spirituality, universalism, none of that. Yeshua, Allah, Muhammad, Moses, Aaron, Jesus, Buddha, Brahman, Yeshua ben Pandita, all of these characters are absolutely fictional. They have no place in traditional culture, and of course that includes Hoodoo as well. They were manufactured by the whites and their offspring for the purposes of mental and spiritual enslavement. Now we show the images on the front cover. On the bottom right-hand corner, Khanitu, the people of ancient Khanat, the Khanit people, Nubian people. That's one of the titles of ancient Nubia, Khanat, the Khanat land or the Khanit land. Next to them, we show some Nanano Mpanyimpo, honorable elders and eldresses in the Akhan tradition. This particular picture is from the Ivory Coast. Then we show Nana Araminta, Harriet Tubman, and then we show an image, an artist rendition of the Afuraitkaitnut warriors and warriors waging war against the whites and their offspring during enslavement in North America. So we show that direct line, that continuity from ancient Khanat, the Khanat land, Khanit land, the land of the Khanit people. Then we moved to Western Afuraitkaitnut and reestablished the empire of Akana or Ghana. We moved further to the forest belt and savanna regions, reestablished Akana civilization. Some of us were forced into North America from that region. We become the Akan or Akana people in North America, as referenced and represented by Nana Araminta, Harriet Tubman, and the other image of the Akan Kufo warrior waging war against the whites and their offspring. There's a direct blood connection. Of course, the DNA bears that out as well. We talked about the E1B1AY haplogroup that's found in Ramessu III and Tutankhamen, found in greatly clustered in the western part of the continent. 80+% and 50 to 75% of all black people in America carry that same Y chromosomal haplogroup. It's a direct genetic connection to our people from ancient Khanat and Kamit, Nubia and Kamit, cultural connection, linguistic connection, ritual connection. So let's get into the body of the work. And real quick, before we touch on that real quick, we're going to take one of the calls, and then we're going to go forward. So, number 2832, you had a question or comment?
Michiamo.
Hey, Michiamo.
Yeah, I really didn't have anything else to say. You pretty much addressed it. My comment was originally for that first brother that called in. And I just want to let you know, man, I don't care where you're from. We supporting you, and you are bringing some really truth to what's going on. And just keep continuing doing what you're doing, and don't let those crackers and their purveyors continue to do what they do. So I just wanted to give you a shout-out, Kwesi, and thank you for what you're doing, brother.
Oh, okay. Man, I said we appreciate that. Appreciate the call. Appreciate the comment. And, of course, these, our people are colonized. So the first caller represents a large percentage of our people who've been colonized, enslaved mentally, and this is why they spout that kind of nonsense. Okay. And number 8522, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate you and what you're doing and the information that you're sharing. I have a question about some of the things I've heard you say, and not just in this lecture but in others. Now, I wanted to get some clarification because of past negative kind of experience going into or trying to get into or learn Yoruba Ifa tradition, and because of some of the things that it's been, trickery from some people who are doing that, not that it's that way or it's supposed to be that way. But anyway, I want to go and move towards more of a hoodoo tradition, and I was wondering, excuse me. So if we carry it, right, it's in us, it's in our blood, it's in our culture. We have that. There isn't necessarily a need to attempt to learn more about some of those other traditions like Ifa or maybe the Egyptian thing. Maybe it's just something I need to work on with myself, and right now I'm feeling hoodoo. So I'm just trying to understand that a little bit more, what you mean by that.
Okay. So, now no problem. You can learn as much as you want about different traditions because our ancestral traditions fundamentally are the same. We attune to the Great Mother and the Great Father through the agency of the divinities and our ancestresses and ancestors, specifically the class of ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. Because, of course, you have ancestors and ancestors who were criminals, and, of course, you don't evoke them. But so fundamentally that structure is the same. Yoruba, Akan, and Igbo, and different groups, they have their own languages, dialects of an ancient primordial language, but our own dialects, so we have different ways that we express these things and different cultural peculiarities that are, based on when we moved to different regions and the reason why we did different things and different food and social taboos and dietary taboos and so forth based on our true history, just through migrations and everything else and interaction. But fundamentally, if you look across the board, they're very similar all across the continent, wherever black people are in the world. So that's the first thing. So you can, anytime you study, if you learn things about the Orisha, you're talking about the same forces in nature. The Yoruba call the sun Orun, the Akhan people call the sun the Oriya. We're talking about the same entity. The Yoruba people call the Earth Mother Onile. We call the Earth Mother Asase Afur. Then we also have Asase Ya, which is Yewa in the Yoruba tradition. We're talking about the same entity. So if you learn something about Onile, you're actually learning something about Asase Afur. If an Akan person is, or somebody is studying, if a Yoruba person looks at some information about Asase Afur, the Earth Mother and Akan tradition, they will be learning about who Onile is in their own tradition. Say, oh, that just gives me a greater understanding of, how we approach the Earth Mother. So the key is, first, just in general, studying any aspect of the culture in a authentic way, you're still learning about your own. But the second part is, as we brought up in the beginning, communicating with your ancestresses and ancestors. You came into the world, before you came in through this womb, at some point you were living somewhere on the continent. This isn't our first incarnation. You were part of a group, part of a society, part of an ancestral clan. And you're the same spirit, part of that clan. You made your transition a long time ago. You watch your descendants growing up in America. You were their great ancestress, watching your great-great-great-great-grandchildren growing up in America. If they were part of a tradition, they were pouring libation to you. If they were not, they weren't paying attention, most likely. But at some point, you were drawn into through one of your descendants back into the world. If you were an Akhan person a couple hundred years ago, you're the same Akan spirit. Yes, you may have been born through, people who have gone through a great deal of, blood mixture with different groups on plantations and boats and everything else. But the blood can be mixed, but the soul cannot be mixed. So you're the same spirit coming through. If your people suffered miscegenation and you're a little bit lighter brown this time than you were before, that's because of what happened physically, but you're the same spirit entering that womb. So when you communicate with your direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, they can confirm for you what ethnic group you come from. That's establishing an ancestral shrine and engaging them on a periodic basis. And then you find out exactly who you are, whether you're Akhan or Igbo or Bambara or Basa or Fula or whatever it is. They will give you that information, but they will confirm it for you as well in many different ways. And then you start pursuing, learning more knowledge about your own ancestral culture. First and foremost from your ancestors, and then they will direct you to physical confirmation of information that they've given you spiritually, so that now you can go and investigate what they give you spiritually. You can go investigate it and verify it tangibly. So it's taken from the spirit realm to the physical realm.
Do you recommend
does that answer the question?
Well, I have my ancestral shrine. I kind of stepped away from it during a difficult moment when, like I said, I felt like I was being manipulated. But I haven't engaged in that for quite some time now. But I would like to set up another one on my own and just start maybe from scratch. I'm not sure if I should or could do that. And my second point is I've noticed that when I look into trying to find information on hoodoo, especially like books, even the good ones that are recommended, it seems like it's more of a commercial feel to it. There's mostly focus on root work, or there's maybe sometimes a little Christian mixed up in there. But what would be, where would I go for, or how would I identify the good stuff, like that isn't, or that is focusing or has any information about that ancestral practice, directly from Africa, as opposed to just what it's looking like now on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. Do you get my drift?
Right. So,
yeah.
And the first part is, very often what happens is people get connected with somebody who's involved in, traditional culture. They have some initiation or something like that, and they give all kinds of information that sounds like they know what they're talking about. Then they turn out to be a criminal. Then you don't want to have anything to do with them, but then sometimes, like you said, you may pull away from dealing with the ancestral shrine to a certain extent. And especially if they did something to help, quote unquote, consecrate it or gave you certain direction. But of course, what can happen, like you said, instinctively, what you said is correct, and this happens consistently when people get involved with individuals like that and they pull away from them. Yes, you can reestablish your ancestral shrine from the root, from just the foundation. If they gave you some implements or they gave you some items, you can toss all of that. And when people try to tell you, oh, you can't do that, you have to take it back to that individual or else you're going to be cursed and all this other nonsense, your ancestresses and ancestors are with you. They've been with you before you even came into the world. The Orisha or the Abosom, the Vodou that are assigned to you by the Supreme Being were assigned to you before you even came into the womb. That has nothing to do with the Negro who's making up stuff and trying to force you to do something. So your spirituality is not dependent on those fools or any implements that they gave you. So you can toss them, get rid of them, and you don't have to deal with those individuals at all. You don't have to make any kind of supplication or any kind of, ritual to reconnect those implements to that individual. You can fashion, re-erect a foundational, basic shrine, communicate with your people, your direct great-grandmothers, your direct great-grandfathers who spiritually cultivated and so forth, and reestablish that practice. And, of course, they're already moving you in that direction. So, of course, as you know, this is just a confirmation of what they've been directing you to do. Now, with regard to the information on hoodoo, of course, and in fact, not just hoodoo, with hoodoo and just ancestral religion, period. The vast majority of the information out there is misinformation. It was the whites and offspring who began jumping out, publishing things, and their goal, their agenda is to misinform our people. And then you have a lot of black people who are enamored with the whites and offspring and try to incorporate them and all kinds of nonsense like bisexuality, homosexuality into everything they do, and pseudo-metaphysics, and they just publish a great deal of nonsense. So, and that's just across the board, including with hoodoo, including with ancient Kemet and stuff like that. What we're going to show as we go through the book is the connection between these different systems. All these different traditional practices are simply the contemporary expressions of our ancient ancestral religious practices of Khanit, Khanat, Nubia, and later Kemet. They're all, whether it's Akhan, Yoruba, and so forth, we're the same people, migrate to different places, but we're practicing the same tradition. It's just the expressions are the same, but when you look in the languages, you'll find the exact same words in the languages today that you find in ancient Kemet, and we're going to prove that in a few minutes. So one good book, as a matter of fact, is a book called Mojo Working, The Old African American Hoodoo System. Is written by Dr. Katrina Hazard, and she has a website associated with that. The name of the book is Mojo, M-O-J-O, and then Working, W-O-R-K-I-N with an apostrophe. Mojo Working. Her name is Dr. Katrina Hazard, H-A-Z-Z-A-R-D, and we're talking about the old African American hoodoo system. And she talks about how, things came into being, how we came across, during enslavement, how hoodoo began to coalesce. But she also talks about the marketeers and all of the misinformation and all these potions and all of this garbage that's being promoted, and how it began with the whites and their offspring promoting that nonsense in the earlier part of the last century, and it's really taken off. So all these websites and these curios and all of that nonsense, that's the marketeer pseudo-hoodoo. She's talking about the old African-American black belt hoodoo system that came from the plantation prior to the invasion. So she gives an overview of how these things came into being. So you get some information there. And then, what we're doing here is showing the connection between the ancient culture and that. So it's not a lot of work published. It's a lot of misinformation published. So that's an ongoing process. It's a work in progress to put accurate information out, not only about hoodoo, but about the various traditions, and it's ongoing. So it's kind of like people are starting from the beginning, because there's misinformation about Yoruba out there, misinformation about Odunu, all of it. So we have to begin to promote accurate information. So that's a work in progress.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, brother.
Okay, and if you have any other questions, just send us an email, and then we can direct you to some other detailed links as well.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Okay. Grazie. Okay, so again, we started a half an hour late, so we're going to go into overtime. We're going to get into the book right now. There are 3 minutes or 4 minutes left in the broadcast as far as online. Well, it's typically online, it cuts off at 11, but then if you're on the phone line, you can listen past 11. That's typically the way it is. Now, it says left in the stream. It says that we have 33 minutes left in the stream. So if you want to, the overtime would start in 33 minutes. So you can still listen online for the next 33 minutes. But if you want to listen beyond that, you would have to call in 657-383-0635. You can call in now and get on the phone, or you can wait. So let's get into the meat of the book. Okay. So initially, a couple of years ago, we wrote an article, The Akan Origin of the Term Hoodoo. Whites and Offspring try to say it comes from Judeo or Judeo, talking about Judaism. Some will try to say it comes from the Scottish, which is pure nonsense. So we show in detail the term hoodoo coming from Undu in the Akwamu Akan dialect. And we prove that term is utilized in North America as a title for our ancestrally inherited religion, meaning medicine described specifically by root work. It is the Akan word for medicine, Nduru or Ndu. Nduru is the plural for Eduru. In the Asante Akan dialect of the Twi or Akan language, the plural is written and pronounced Nuru with N-N-U-R-U, Nuru. In the Akwamu and Ekwapim dialects, it is written Ndu or Nduru, N-D-U and N-D-U-R-U, so Ndu or Nduru. So it is the Akwamu and Ekwapim dialectical variant that survived in North America. So the Ndu or medicine is, where you get Hundu from. It's principally derived from the Ndua or Ndria, meaning trees, sticks, roots. We also prove that the term hoodoo, meaning conjure, is from the same word with the same root, because not only does Ndu mean medicine, specifically dealing with trees, sticks, roots, plants, and so forth, but the term du, as well as the extended version duru, also means conjure. It means heavy, it means weight, heaviness, weightiness, also means to descend to a light, to come down upon. It references the spirit descending, alighting, or coming down upon an individual during spirit possession, causing the individual to experience spiritual heaviness, du, or duru, weight or power. This is why the general term for gravity in Akan is oduru, meaning heaviness or weightiness, coming down and so forth. The Odwirafo in Akan culture is one of the group of people, fo just means plural as in a group. So if you are Akan, one Akan person is Akani. Many Akan people is Akan fo. So that's just a plural. A black person is Obibini. Black people is Obibifo or Ebibifo, fo meaning group. So the Odwirafo is one of the group of people, fo, who makes medicine, ndu, with roots or plants, ndua or ndria. So the Odwirafo in Akan culture is the one who makes the medicine with the plants, with the roots, and so forth. Referred to as a physician, doctor, or healer. Sometimes when they're writing in English, they'll say a sorcerer or whatever. It's because of his or her capacity to call on the spirits to descend a light or come down upon, du or duru, when making the medicine, ndu, including medicine with trees, plants, and roots, ndua, ndria. This is the conjuring, du or duru, of the spirits of the Nsamanfo and the Abosa. This is the function of the Odwirafo as well as the Odun Sinifo. Odu, dealing with the medicine. Nsin means the trunk or the stump of a tree, also dealing with roots and so forth. So Odun Sinifo is the one of the group of people, fo, who makes ndu, medicine, from the nsin, the trunk or the roots of the tree or the plant. That is a root medicine person, a root making person, a root doctor, root worker. To work or to make something happen, is to work or to make. Odwirafo is the medicine, ndu, making person. Working with ndria, ndua or ndria, meaning trees, plants, and so forth. This is the root medicine or root doctor, root worker. But he's also, or she's also dealing with du, meaning to descend upon, to come down upon, to become heaviness with the spirit, calling down the spirit, dealing with conjuring. So the Odwirafo is the conjurer, the Odwirafo is the root worker, root doctor. In detail. So the exact same terms that we use for hoodoo, meaning hoodoo, root worker, and root doctor, but hoodoo also means conjure. The exact same term with the exact same meaning and the exact same spiritual or ritual specialist defining those two functions. Now, we show that in the Asante Fanti dictionary. We show du meaning medicine, Nakwamu dialect, Ndu, as well as the Asante dialect, Nduru, and so forth. But then the key is, we find in the language of ancient Kemet, in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphics, Ndu means medicine. We show the Medutu for that. And this is on page 8. So Ndu or Nduru meaning medicine. In the Ebers papyrus, they'll translate it as fat or grease. And they're thinking, oh, this is some kind of substance in the Ebers medical papyrus, some kind of substance of fat or grease that they use medicinally. So they put a question mark because they weren't necessarily sure, was it fat or was it grease? What kind of medicinal substance is it? And they put a question mark next to Udunu because they didn't know how to pronounce it. But we know how to pronounce it because it's the Medutu for the U and the T and the N, Ndu, or Ndunu. In Akhan, it's Ndu as well as Nduru. We have both pronunciations. And just like you have shea butter, where you use shea butter as, we use it as, a medicine, but it's also used as moisturizer. The White Offspring will say that the oil from the shea tree is the fat that the natives use on their bodies, but they also use it for medicinal purposes. It is also used for ritual purposes to cleanse the head and various other things. So they call it fat or grease, but it's used medicinally and ritually as well. This is why in ancient Kemet, Ndu and Ndunu, Ntunu means the medicinal substance that they reference as fat or grease, but it's in the Hebrew medical papyrus. So we show that in the hieroglyphics, in the Medutu. When you scroll down, they use a T for that particular version, Ntu or Nturu, dealing with medicine. But then another version of the exact same term, Ntunu, it means a kind of tree. So the same term that means medicine, Ntu or Ntunu, in the hieroglyphics in ancient Kemet is also Ntunu, meaning a kind of tree. So we show that, and then of course, Du or Dria means trees, plants, shrubs, and so forth. Pieces of wood, sticks, roots, all of that. And then we talk about the determinatives, but we're showing the key that the same term for fat or grease or medicine is the same term for a kind of tree. That's key, because also the term grain or seed, plants, vegetables, Ntu, in ancient Kemet as well. So we show the hieroglyphics for that. So now you have, in Akan language, Ndu as well as Nduru, meaning medicine, medicinal substance. In Kemet, Ntun and Ntunu, medicine or medicinal substance. In Akan, Ndua or Ndria, tree, plant, or plants. In ancient Kemet, Ntun or Ntunu, tree, plant, or plants. But we have even more. We also have the definition related to conjuring, which defines the spirit coming down, descending, alighting, or possessing, which causes one to become heavy, feel weightiness, and so forth. So in North America, for example, someone gets possessed, the spirit comes down upon them, and they say, the spirit came down. I'm heavy with the spirit. We may not have known the language, lost knowledge of the language temporarily, suppressed knowledge of the language, the Akan language, but we use the English language words that represent the feeling that we have, and then we describe it through the English language, and we say, well, the spirit came down upon me, I became heavy, weighted down or heavy with the spirit. That's key, because we say those in Akan culture who use Ndua or Ndria meaning trees, plants, sticks, or roots, to make Ndu medicines have two important titles, Odun Sinifo and Odwirafo. We just talked about that. The term Nduru doesn't just mean medicine, though, and trees and plants and sticks and all that. It also means heavy and weighty in the Akan language. We talk about somebody with a heavy chest, Okoko Duru, meaning they have a heavy chest, so they're strong. Sun Sum Yeduru, the Sun Sum of the spirit, is heavy, meaning you're strong-spirited, you have weight, you have defensive power because you have weight. If you're a light spirit, you can be pulled in all kinds of different directions, but if you have weight, you have a heavy spirit, you can repel negative entities and so forth. So Uduru means heaviness, it means weight, solidity, but it also means medicine, that immunity, that defensive power. So we show that in the Asante Fanti dictionary, but then you go to the hieroglyphic dictionary, and the same term for medicine, Udunu, the same term for trees, sticks, roots, and so forth, Nduru, also the same term, Nduru, in the hieroglyphics means to be heavy or weight. So it's the exact same term. And we show that in the Medutu. And not only is it spelled with the T, but there's another variation spelled with the Medut, or the hieroglyph, or the symbol that represents the D sound. So it's Nturu as well as Nduru, or Ndun, meaning a weight, to be heavy. Two variations of the same term. So again, we put a list side by side. Akhan, Ndu, or Nduru, medicine, medicinal substance. In ancient Kamit, in the hieroglyphics, Ntu, Nturu, medicine, medicinal substance. In Akan, Ndua, tree, plant, plants, also pronounced Ndria. In Kamit, Ntu, Ntunu, tree, plant, or plant. In Akan, Du, or Nduru, or Uduru, meaning heavy, a weight. In ancient Kamit, Udunu, meaning heavy, a weight. With regard to the relationship of heaviness or weightiness and the spiritual nature of the medicine cultivated and conjured by the Odwirafo, we say this in our article that we quote. We should also note that the term Dudu means to descend, dismount, alight, come or go down, to feel a presentiment of foreboding. This references the spiritual aspect of the medicine. The spirits who work with the Odwirafo or Odwirafo descend, alight, come down upon the plant, the healer, and sometimes the client. This is also related to the spiritual notion of Duru heaviness with regard to spirit possession. The notion of feeling a presentiment or a foreboding has to do with calm, spirit communication, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairequilibrance, clairtemiance, all of that. The spiritual aspect of the medicine, Oduru, making, is what the Odwirafo or Odwirafo, the hoodoo making person, is called in African American parlance a conjurer, and the tradition often referred to as conjure, because he or she will call the spirits to come down, or duru. The person becomes heavy or weight, duru, weighted down, and so forth. And we show that in the Asante Fanti dictionary, but then we also show in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphics of ancient Kemet, Ndu, Ndi, meaning to lay, to put, to place, to set, to thrust out, to push, to cast out, also to breach a wall, to bore, to penetrate. This is talking about to set down, to throw down, to shoot down, to cast out, to cry out, to commit an offense, deal harm or injury, to radiate light, plant trees, all related to the function of conjuring spirits in a positive or negative fashion, putting or laying down hoodoo on someone, quote unquote, put a root on someone, incantations, which is to emit or cry utterances, sending spirits at someone, shooting energy at someone, possession meaning to bore, to penetrate, overcome someone's spiritual defenses with medicine, conjuring in order to control them, to breach a wall. All of these definitions of Ndu, Ndi, and Nduru in Medutu of ancient Kemet are directly related to calling the spirits down, casting, shooting energy out, laying down energy, and so forth. Now, again, if you are tied to the abosom, the forces in nature, then you can only do that in harmony with divine order. If you reject the forces in nature, then they're no longer communicating with you. Then you use your little weak residual energy to cause problems. It's like somebody who works out. They can get strong and muscular. They can use their muscular power to save somebody from a burning building, or they can use their muscular power to, commit armed robbery. If they use their muscular power to commit armed robbery, it's not because they're being possessed by an abosom, and then the abosom have nothing to do with that. The forces in nature are embodiments of divine order, so they don't participate in disorder. It's impossible for them to do so. It's against their nature. They don't engage in that. So if you use your little muscular power you develop to engage in criminality, that has no connection with the abosom. Same thing when you develop your higher psychic power, that's not necessarily connected with divine spiritual power, which is the tumi of the abosom. If you develop your capacity to see beyond the senses or hear, or you're born with that, that's like psychic muscle. You develop some psychic muscle, or you were born with psychic muscle, just like somebody working out, and they're more muscular than the average person who doesn't work out. But if somebody else worked out, they'll get just as muscular, but they just don't work out. Because you work out, you just happen to be more muscular. The same thing with psychic, quote-unquote, muscle. You can see beyond the senses, project beyond the senses, hear beyond the senses, the physical senses, and so forth, so you have a little bit higher residual power. If you link yourself as well as that power to the divine order, then the abosom will operate through you and utilize your, capacity in a harmonious fashion. If you do not align with them, they will not do so, and the only thing you have to use is your muscular power and your little lower level psychic muscle. That's totally devoid of the abosom. So this is what we're talking about. So it's not a situation where people say, well, some people use hoodoo for evil and some people use hoodoo for good, and there's no right or wrong, and there's just a balance, and good and evil are two halves of a whole. That's pure nonsense. And we talked about that in our book, Modern and Chi, Divine Law, Love, or Divine Hate, where we go into detail about good and evil are not two halves of a whole. Evil is the perversion of the good. There's no evil as part of divine order. The whites and offspring created that pseudo-philosophical ploy to get our people to accept evil as part of divine order, and therefore we would accept the control of the whites and their offspring, and if we fight against them, we're fighting against the divine order. Pure nonsense. It's the same thing that some people bring into hoodoo. They'll say, these energies are just energies in creation, and they're not evil or good. They're just like fire and water, and positive and negative, and depending on how you use them determines if you're evil or not. That's nonsense. Some people are communicating with the forces in nature, and some people are not. And the ones who are not, they promote that nonsense. The ones who are, the only thing they can engage in is engage in practices that are in harmony with divine order. If you decide that you're going to reject divine order, the abosom cut you off from them. They don't participate. Just like when you reverse the polarity of two magnets on a table and the same polarities are facing, then they repel one another. When you reverse your polarity and get involved in disorder, then you become repulsive to and repelled by the forces of divine order, which is who the abosom, the orisha, are. So they do not participate in disorder. But when we're looking at this term, Udunu, meaning in the Medutu and ancient Kemet, meaning to set down, to throw, to shoot out, to cast out, and all of that, is dealing with the use of the energy that you have. And it's dealing with the same term, du or dunu, in the Akan culture, meaning to cast down, to bring down, to make the spirit come down, and all of that, dealing with contra. But further definition, in the language of Kemet, we also have the term Udunu, which means to make an offering. Udunu, talking about something that's offered or a gift. Udunu meaning an altar. Udunu meaning a shrine in Minnefer, in one of the sacred sanctuaries of the seat of government, as a matter of fact, for a large part of the true history of dynastic Kemet, Minnefer, that they call Memphis, a shrine in Memphis, Udunu. So not only does it deal with medicine from trees, roots, and so forth, Nduru, also has to do with conjure, to cast down, to eject out, and so forth, that energy. But it also means a heaviness and a weight, the same terms in Kemet that you find in Akhan, but it also means to make an offering. It also means an altar. It also means a shrine, Nduru. This is hoodoo shrines found in ancient Kamit. But we go even further than that. Variation of the term Ndu, meaning a table or altar for offering. These are ritual offerings. Ndu also meaning the offerings of meat and drink which are set on the altar. Further definition, and of course, in Hoodoo, have ancestral altars, shrines for the abosom, specifically very often out in nature. Even though we lost the language, these abosom are still connected to us. So we still pour libation into the Earth Mother. We still connect with the spirit that animates the rivers, that animates the thunder and lightning and so forth, the crossroads and so forth. Instead of saying, Awuku or Kweku Anansi, some of us still remember Anansi in North America, but even those who don't, they say, the black man who's at the crossroads, that black man, that black spirit who's at the crossroads. In Yoruba, they would call him Eshu. In Vodun, they call him Legba. In the Akan tradition, he is Anansi, Awuku Anansi, Kweku Anansi, and so forth, the trickster, but also the communicator of the Supreme Being. So we may not know the name, but we say, the black man at the crossroads. The great black man, the great black spirit, he took me to the bottom of the river and taught me medicine, or showed me what was going to happen. We didn't know the name specifically and how to say that in the Akan language because we lost the name, the language, but the spirit forces are still communicating with us. If someone is deaf, they don't know how to speak and so forth, but they can still communicate with you through sign language and so forth. They can watch what you're doing, you can watch what they're doing, and you can have a communication interaction. When we become spiritually and culturally deaf, quote unquote, because we lost the knowledge of the language, then the Nsamafo will communicate with us. Sometimes they will share with us the words in the language. They will speak those words to you. Then you have to go look those words up. They'll speak those words and show you what they mean. They'll point to a dog and say, Kramai, and then you'll wake up from a dream or come from an ancestral ritual at an altar and say, the Nsamafo pointed to a dog and said, Kramai, and I remember that word. So then you go, look in the dictionary, look on the internet, what is the Akan word for dog, and it says, Kramai. You say, they just told me what that was. And they'll tell you many different words and names of divinities and so forth. So we have shrines to the ancestors and ancestors. We have shrines to the abosom, very often in Hoodoo, going out to the shrines in nature and dealing directly with them in that fashion, but also in the homes as well. So Hoodoo in ancient Kemet also means offering, a table or altar for offering set on the altar. This is ritual offering. We show the determinative symbol in the term Udunu, meaning offering, is the circle or circuit. It's called Deben, but in the determinative symbol is shown at the end of the word Ndu. So you have Ndu, meaning the offerings table set on the offering, setting on the altar table and so forth, but then they show that determinative symbol. It looks like a circuit, a oblong circle. It means to revolve, to go about, to wander around a place, to make a circuit of a place, to go around in the circle, circumference, circle. That's very key because, of course, in Hoodoo, as well as in the Akan tradition, when people go to Akhan rituals and spirit possession occurs when drums are playing and dancing, the people dance around in a counterclockwise circle. That is the sacred circle where possession occurs, and people dance around that circle over and over and over again, generating a vortex of energy in the abosom. It's like a welcome mat, an aquaba mat. The abosom take up residence and possess people there. The counterclockwise movement, circling in that, fashion, is the movement of the earth. In a counterclockwise fashion, we get in harmony with the movement of the Earth Mother. We create that field of energy. It opens up that welcome mat for the abosom and the Mmusuo, and they possess and take up residence. They do that in the Akan tradition. We do that in North America. We lost the name of it, but then in English they use the term ring shout or other names, where the quote-unquote slaves would be on the plantation. They start dancing around in the circle, and then they get possessed by the spirit. And then even when we got brainwashed, went into the churches, some of our people still doing that in the churches, and they'll call it the ring shout dance, so forth. You can Google videos on YouTube, and you'll see that, and then you compare them with those in Ghana and so forth, you'll see that counterclockwise circle and the possession that takes place within those circles. The term Udu, talking about offering on an altar and so forth, including that symbol for the circuit, has to do specifically with that. When you get possessed, when you begin to engage in those dance movements, you begin to wield the energy of the Tumi of the Abosom, align your energy, the little energy inside your body, with the energy of the Abosom. That's no different than when you engage in ritual prayer. You release the sound vibrations from your body and project them out to the forces in nature. Those sound vibrations provoke and stimulate the energy of the Abosom, and then they respond. When you engage in dance movements, you begin to wield energy and generate energy with the arms, legs, and so forth, and you project that energy out from your body, and it provokes the energy of the spirits in nature, and then they respond through communication and or possession. That projection of energy from you to them, that is an offering. You're giving of yourself, giving of your specific, particular configuration of energy that makes up you physically and spiritually. You're projecting that to them so you can align with them and get a response, so you can learn how to align your thoughts, intentions, and actions with order and bring balance to your life where imbalance has occurred, whether it's through medicine or other means. So that's an offering. And that's why the term for offering includes that symbol for the circuit. Now, of course, the whites and offspring reading that, they couldn't read that into the symbol because they're not part of that living culture. As soon as we see that circuit associated with the term Udu in ancient Kamit, meaning offerings, we know exactly what they're talking about because we lived that, and not only lived it in Ghana, but in North America, we still dance in that counterclockwise circle. We still get possessed by the ancestors. We still learn medicine and so forth. This is an unbroken tradition, transcarnational tradition, very genetic transmission of culture intergenerationally through successive incarnations. Then we also have the term Udu, Ut and Udu, meaning to mummify in ancient Kemet, to embalm. So you have Udu, Uti, Udu, Udut, embalmers, those who embalming the body, variations of that term. Why is that important? Of course, embalming is a priestly function. The mummifier or the embalmer is Udu in ancient Kemet, and the Medutu bear that out. The hieroglyphs bear that out. But the people who do the embalming communicate with the spirit of the deceased individual. This is conjure. This is Udu conjure. This is why mummification is Udu as well in ancient Kemet. In North America, we used to bury our deceased under the floors of our dirt homes before integration and all of that. We bury our grandmothers and grandfathers right under the dirt floors of our homes. When we pour libation, we are literally pouring libation over the burial site, literally, or we bury them in our yards. The people who are engaged in the burial process, somebody makes their transition, those grandmothers, grandfathers who can communicate with the spirits, they're the ones who will prepare the body and so forth and deal with the funerary practices. Before we got brainwashed and got involved in the churches and all that nonsense, we're taking care of our own bodies. We're taking care of the funerary practices, dealing with the ritual practices, the ones who would deal with the body. They communicate with the spirit of the individual. They would leave offerings of food and so forth and other things, prayers for the spirit to carry back to the other ancestors and ancestors who went on before them, as well as to carry to the Supreme Being and the Abosom and so forth. That's Udu. And this is why the term Udu means conjure, but it also means embalming in ancient Kemet. Communicating with the, spirit. But that's key because the term for embalming in the Akhan language is Aduru She. She means to fix, to establish. Nduru means medicine. Aduru She, the act of embalming. So once again, the term Udu in ancient Kemet in the hieroglyphics meaning embalming and those who embalm. Nduru She in Akhan language means the act of embalming a corpse. And of course, it was in Hoodoo, the ones who were the Hoodoo ritualists, they're the ones who could communicate with the deceased spirits, and they participated in the funerary preparation, the quote-unquote embalming. And then we have the term Achenchen Nduru. Achen means hard, hardening. So the Achen Duru is the Achen or the hardening Duru, the hardening medicine in Akhan for embalming a corpse. The kind of medicine in Duru which would make the body hard or Achen. But the act of embalming itself is Duru She. And then we have the Akan people who are describing to the compilers of the Asante Fanti Dictionary in 1875 and the grammar. They would go to the Akan people in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and so forth, sit down with them and ask them, hey, what does this mean in English? Give us, they taught them how to speak English, and they give them, they're trying to describe certain things. They would say, okay, how do you say this in the Akan language? And give us, some context so we can understand the best way to translate this in English. And this is what they said in 1875. And we put this quote in here. It says, Tete misrefo ka efunu achenchenduru a na boayi ne trim hone na ayamde afi nemu na wodie nchene di ne nuru ashe amudno. And it's translated as, this is what the Akan person was telling the compiler of the dictionary in 1875. That's translated as, when the ancient Egyptians embalmed a corpse, they took the brains and the bowels out of it and put a kind of salt and spices into the corpse. So the Akan people who are helping these people compile the dictionary, when they asked them about, hey, tell me something about embalming, they use the example of the Tete Misri Fo, meaning the ancient Egyptian. Okay, real quick, if you want to listen past 11:30, you have 1 minute to call in. 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You have 1 minute to call in because the people who are listening online won't be able to hear beyond 11:30. So 657-383-0635, you have a minute to call in. If you call in within that minute, then you'll be able to hear online and you'll still be able to ask questions online. I'm sorry, on the phone. All right. So we put that information in there to show that they use the Tete, which means ancient, Misri Fo, they get that. On one hand, they get Misri, comes from Misraim, not from the Bible, but actually from Mesore and Mesurah from ancient Kemet. The whites and their offspring corrupted Mesurah and Mesore in Coptic to Mesuraim in the Bible and Mysore in Arabic and so forth. And some of these people, they learned about that and they said, Tete Mesuri Fo, Tete ancient Misri Fo, the Misri people, which is the Mesore people, Mesurah people. When they embalmed the corpse, Achinchin Nduru, hardened it with the medicine, then they would take the brains and the bowels out of it and put a kind of salt and spices into the corpse. Then we show the term Ndu, Udu, She, the god of embalming. This is why Aduru, She, and Akhan means the act of embalming. And then we show Udiu, meaning the embalmers, and so forth. Same term. Now, Udu also means to order, to issue commands, to command, to be called, and so forth. Udu, Sao means magical power in ancient Kemet, spiritual power in ancient Kemet. Sao, the term Udu, Sao, they'll say the ejaculation of magical formula and spells, meaning the ejection or release or the shooting out of magical formula or spells in the Medusa, the Udu Sa, the conjuring and laying down Udu of quote-unquote formula or spells or spiritual energy. This is talking about the hoodoo person, the Udu Sa, the one who uses the energy and conjures it and releases it, ejects it, Udu. So this is a proof of hoodoo in action in ancient Kemet. And then the related terms, Udu, to shoot out fire, to burn, Udu, strong. So then you have Udu Ken, meaning a violent person and so forth. So again, people can misuse the lower level energy that they have, Nduru, and just like you can use muscular energy to harm somebody. But when you connect yourself with the forces in nature, then you cannot use that energy in a criminal way. You can use it to harm your enemies. That's in harmony with divine order. That's always in harmony with divine order. The eradication, extermination of the enemies is always in harmony with divine order, has divine support, as we talked about last night. We talked about Bena, Herubehudet, and so forth. But misusing your energy in a self-destructive fashion, the Abosom separate from you instantly. You no longer have access to divine energy at all. You're on your own at that point. So we go into some more detail about that, and we show those that Medutu. And then we talk about, once again, our capacity to successfully wage war was powered by our practice of hoodoo. We talked about that earlier, using that energy to wage war. We also have the term Nduru, once again, in ancient Kemet, to copy or to write, and then Nduru, meaning the name of a deity who is the copyist of Tahuti, the deity of divine wisdom. So the deity of divine wisdom is Tahuti, male divinity. Teshat, the female divinity of divine wisdom. Ma'at and Ma'at are the male and female divinities of divine law. The male and female divinities of divine wisdom is Tahuti and Seshat. She's also called Sefik Abui. But the messenger of Tahuti, the little baboon divinity that sits right next to Tahuti, who is his quote-unquote copyist, the copier to write Nduru. Then you have, his name is Nduru, but the word Nduru meaning to copy or to write. His name is Nduru, the little ape divinity, also a friend of the deceased. And we show an image of him sitting next to Tahuti, the messenger of Tahuti and so forth. Of course, this is the male Edun in the Yoruba tradition, the child of Orunmila. When they talk about the Ibejis, there's a male Edun, female Edun, in the form of monkeys, little sacred monkeys, but they were, children of Orunmila, the first twin. We talked about that in our broadcast dealing with the deity Ma'a and his relationship to the deity Ma'at. Ma'a is a divinity, Ma'at is a divinity. The male Edun, he became an Ifa priest, the little monkey, who was a follower of Orunmila, the divinity of divine wisdom. The little monkey became his follower, became an Ifa priest. This is the little monkey right here. His name is Edun in Yoruba, it's Nduru in ancient Kemet, and he's the copyist of Tahuti, the quote-unquote spokesperson and so forth. Now we're talking about divination, to copy or to write. So when you look at Adinkra symbols in the Akan tradition, every Adinkra symbol has divine wisdom teachings associated with them. We talk about the divinities showed us the Adinkra symbols. Many of these Adinkra symbols are symbols you find in the Medusa, the hieroglyphics of ancient Kemet. So when Abosom possessed, when we talk about Tahuti, the people of ancient Kemet say Tahuti, the god of wisdom, taught us writing, and Seshat taught us writing. We understand that clearly, because when the Abosom possessed, they will grab a stick and draw things in the dirt or the sand and tell us what that symbol is, what the name of it is, point to it, and tell us what the sound is, and to use that from that point on. And we remember that symbol, we remember that sound, we draw it ourselves, and we share it with the community. This is what the Abosom said this symbol is. They drew it, they pointed to it, they announced it, directed us to repeat what they said. From that point on, we use that symbol for that. This is where Adinkra symbols come from. This is where Zebes come from in Vodun. This is where these sacred symbols come from, directly from the Abosom that we have preserved. And the little messenger or copyist taking down the divine wisdom of Tahuti and codifying it and so forth. This Nduru, when we use sacred symbolism in Nduru, that's part of Nduru, Hoodoo, is that sacred symbolism. It's not only transferring wisdom, those sacred symbols and, proverbial wisdom associated with it, but those symbols themselves are matrices. So when life force energy moves through those geometric forms, it creates a field of energy peculiar to that form. And when that form has come from the Abosom, it will show you which specific geometric patterns resonate at the frequency of their energy. So when you use those patterns, draw them out, mark them out, it is a magnet for that abosom to take up a residence so you can communicate. It becomes a miniature shrine, a miniature abosom komre, abosom shrine. This is not just coming from ancient Kemet. That's what the Medutu were and are. Of course, these are the Adinkra symbols. In the Akan tradition, this is what they were and are. But we have found these Adinkra symbols in North America. People have found them. We produced one of them in the text here. We took that from the website, the Omogun website, from Dr. Katrina Hazard, who has the book out, Mojo Working, the old African-American Hoodoo system, showing one of those sacred symbols, and then we show an Akan Adinkra symbol right next to it, showing that we were still utilizing these symbols. You find these symbols in quote-unquote African America, where we're utilizing Adinkra symbols. Some of the Vebes that you'll find in Vodun, because people participated in Vodun. You have people who were Ebe and Fon and so forth. You also had Igbo people. You also had Congo people, those different classes of spirits, Arara spirits and the Petro spirits and so forth, the Loa, the Igbo and so forth, different, nations, quote-unquote, coming forward, syncretized, and, they were coalescing, Pan-African in that sense. There's some of that happening in Hoodoo as well, but there were some Akan people participating as well. Some of those Veves you will find are actually Adinkra symbols as well. For example, the Nyame Dwira symbol, you'll find that it's making up some of the Veves. You'll see some of the forms of the Asase Yeduru symbols making up some of the Veves as well. So they're not only symbols that transfer knowledge just based on the divine wisdom teaching, the Ebe, the divine wisdom teaching associated with the symbol, but the symbols themselves are matrices of power, and they're constructed based on the specific configuration of energy that comes from the abosom that tells you to utilize that symbol. And the one who copies those symbols out is the divinity, the little baboon divinity called Udunu, and of course, that's part of Undu Hoodoo as well. All of that is in the text. All the proof of that is in the text. But then Udunu is a class of divinities in ancient Kemet. There's Undu, a solar divinity found in the Duat, the 10th hour of the night, but you also have the Unduru, the divinities found in the oldest religious literature on earth are the Meru texts, the pyramid texts. In the pyramid texts, or Meru text of the Insu, or the Pera, the king, pharaoh, Pepi, utterance 950 to 951, he mentions the Udunu deities. So it's a class of deities called Udunu. He says, Almighty heaven, give the hand to Pepi. O great sky, give the hand to Pepi. Pepi is your divine hawk. Pepi comes, he appears in heaven, he cleaves to the sky. Kepu, talking about when Pepi, the king, makes his transition and becomes an ancestor spirit and begins to interface with the other ancestresses and ancestors and the deities in the heavenly realm. Pepi does homage to his father Ra. Ra is the creator of the universe. Ra'ed is the creatress. He ministers to him like Heru, the son of Asar. Pepi comes to him. Ra, the creator, makes Pepi to rise as a new being. He establishes for Pepi his two divine eyes, which are the sun and the moon. Pepi comes before him, great like Heru of Nu, with a lock of hair. He smites the crowns of the north. He issues decrees to the Udunu deities. The Afa deities follow in the train of Pepi, and those who are at the head of heaven and earth come to him with bowings of homage. So Udunu is also the name of a class of divinities, deities from ancient Kemet. Then we have the text. One of the texts from the instruction of Ani, you'll find it in the Papyrus Bulak number 4. We show the entire text, the Medusu of the text. We show the transliteration of the text in the language of Kemet, and we show the translation of that. The translation says, when making ritual offerings to the abosom, to the divinity, to the Untoro, the so-called Neter, the Untoro, that you are invoking, guard against offering that which the deity detests. So you don't offer things that are polluting, that are disorder. You only offer things that are in harmony with what the divinity energy is in harmony with. When making a ritual offering to the Abosom, to the Ntoro, the deity that you are invoking, guard against offering that which he detests or she detests. The key here is when it says when making an offering, the term from offering is nduru, ndu, the hoodoo. When you're making the hoodoo, the offerings to the deity, guard against offering that which he detests or she detests. So this is the term hoodoo dealing with ritual offering in action in ancient Kemet. We also have another text, and it also says the deity detests too much idle speaking at its shrine. Make your prayers and invocations with a heart which is loving or in harmony with divine law, whose invocations are internal and not boastful. The Abosom or the deity will attend to the work you are doing ritually, hear that which you have inquired about, and accept your offering. Engage in idle talking when you're at the shrine. You're focused, attuning to what is in harmony with divine order and how you need to align your thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. When you do that with a quote-unquote loving heart or a heart that's in harmony with the law, whose invocations are internal and not boastful, you know how some people who think they're involved in some ritual stuff will talk about all the great things they can do and all of that nonsense? Yeah, both of them separate from idiots like that. Okay. When you do that, when you're engaged in lawful or loving, offerings and so forth, not that idle talk at the shrine, nonsense at the shrine, but being focused in harmony with divine order, then the divinity will attend to the work that you are doing ritually, hear that which you have inquired about, and accept your offerings. The key is, when it says accept your offerings, it says accept your Udunu, meaning your hoodoo, accept your hoodoo. Hoodoo in action in ancient Kemet. Okay. But the final key here is that caps all of this information is the exact same term, Udunu. Udu and Udunu is the title of Sudan, title of ancient Nubia, ancient Khanat. And we show that in the Medusa. And then there are variations of that term. And we show the difference between the sound for the T, the sound for the D, the sound for the DJ, and so forth. So you have the T sound, the T sound, the D sound, the Nturu, Nduru, Njunu, all related. And there are those three different variations you'll find talking about a Sudani country, a Sudan country. They didn't know the specific location of that capital, but they knew it was Nubia. So that's why they'll say it's a Sudani country. It's in the Sudan, quote-unquote, ancient Nubia. They just couldn't pinpoint the specifics, but they would know the eastern part of it, the western part of it, the part that's east of the Nile, the Happy River, the part of Sudan that was east of the Nile, the part of the Sudan that was west of the Nile, the part of Sudan that was further south of ancient Kemet, and going deeper and deeper into ancient Kemet. So, Nduru, Ntunu, Ndau, Ndu, all districts in the Sudani country. This is ancient Khanit, this is ancient Nubia. More importantly, however, you'll find that Udunu, as a people, a Sudani people. And then you find that in the poetical, as they call it, poetical stele of Tehuti Mmusuo III. When Amen, the great male divinity, supreme being, you have Amen, the great father, Amenet is the great mother. The grandchildren of Amen and Amenet are Ra and Ra'ed, who are the creator and creatress. They direct Ra and Ra to create the universe, but Amen and Amenet are the great being, father and mother. When Amen is speaking, Tehuti Mmusuo III, great king in ancient Kemet, waged war, expanded the empire, waged war against the whites and their offspring, crushed them, went up into Syria and so forth. The kingdom spread up further north beyond the borders of Kemet and further south beyond the borders of Kemet and so forth. So he conquered a number of different areas. He conquered some of the people of Nubia as well. So when in this poetical stele, Amen is talking about how I assisted you to Hudimet to conquer all these different people. The Tehenu are the people in Libya. But he says specifically, I came to let you tread or walk over or run over the Tehenu, meaning the blacks in Libya. The Udunu people, lands, and isles are in your power. Those are the people west of the Hapi River, further south in the Sudan, in Nubia. The Udunu people. So he said, I came to let you tread upon the Tehenu. So Amen is telling Tahuti, listen, I'm the one who's the power behind you, allowing you to overcome the Libyans. Then I also allowed you to overcome the Udunu people, the lands of the Udunu people, the Sudani people in Nubia. So, and then we show the Medusa, the hieroglyphs for that. So that is the key, because of course, Kamit is the child of Nubia, ancient Khanit or Khanat. So Nubia, one of the titles, of course, is Khanat, or the Khanit land, which is this is why we call ourselves Akhan today. Khan means first and foremost. Khan means to calculate or to reckon. In the Twi or Akan language, in ancient Kamit, Khanit, Khan means first and foremost. Khan means to calculate, to reckon. Khanat means the first land. It is a reference for Nubia, south of Kamit. It means the front land, the first land, the land of the beginnings, and so forth. The Khanit too are the Akani people, the first people from the beginning. This is why we called ourselves that in ancient Khanat, Nubia. We call ourselves the land Khanat. The people, we call ourselves Khanatu or Khanitu. We migrated west. We continue to call ourselves the Akana people, Akani people, Akan people. We established the Akana Empire, Ghana Empire. We moved away from there about 1,000 years ago. We reestablished Akan civilization in the forest belt where Ghana and Ivory Coast are today. And then some of us were forced into North America. It's called Khanat, Akanat. It's also called Nkoso. Some people will say Nehesu, but Nkoso. That's the title of ancient Nubia as well. But then also, Udunu is a title of ancient Nubia as well. And the Udunu people are the people of ancient Udunu. The Udunu people, the Hoodoo people. We called ourselves that. And our country that in ancient Nubia, Udunu land, Udunu people. We call ourselves that in our Akan culture, people who engage in Udunu medicine, conjure, and so forth. And we continue to use the exact same terms in North America today. Unbroken tradition linguistically, culturally, ritually, transcarnationally through successive reincarnation. Same people. And then we give that list of those various terms. Just to pull all of that together. In the Akan language, Nduru meaning medicine. In ancient Kemet and Khanit, Nduru meaning medicine. Ndua or Ndria in Akan means trees, plants, roots. Ndu meaning trees, plants, roots in ancient Kemet. Ndu or Dudu means heavy, heaviness, a weight. Nduru means heavy. In Akan, in Kemet, Nduru means heavy, heaviness, a weight. Du or Dudu means to descend, come down upon in Akan. Ndu means to cause to come down, magical formula in Kemet. Nduru means ritual medicine offering. Udunu means ritual in Akan. Udunu means ritual offerings or a shrine in Kemet. Eduru She means embalming in Akan. Udu and Undu She means embalming and the deity of embalming in ancient Kemet. Odu Yefo means the spirit conjurer, medicine, embalming. Udiu means embalmer, communicator with the deceased in ancient Kemet. Odu Yefo means the medicine person, Akandra in Akan. Udu Sao is the ritual incantations, the conjuring in ancient Kemet. Odun Sinifo, the medicine person, healer. Then you have Udunu, the deity, the assistant of Tahuti, as well as Udunu, the class of deities that we talked about in the pyramid text. In North America, the Hoodoo people, African Americans. In Kemet, the Udunu people, the people of ancient Nubia. Land of Hoodoo, the South, the southern United States. Udunu in ancient Kemet, as well as Khanit, is Khanit, the south land, the land south of Kemet. And we have all the Medusa, the hieroglyphs, to prove that. So then we show some connections, and we also show the Adikra symbol Asase Yeduru, which means the earth mother Asase Ye Doodoo is heavy, has weight, has substance, has power. It means all power emanates from Asase Afur, the Earth Mother, the medicine, the power, and everything else because of the heaviness, the weightiness of her. But Asase Yeduru, in our dialect, of course, would mean Asase Yeduru. Asase not only is heavy Duru, but Asase Yeduru, meaning Asase or Earth, is Hoodoo. So this is why we say Hoodoo has never left us. Hoodoo is us. The final proverb we show, Nyame ma wo yarea ma wo iduru. If Nyame, God, which is Amen, as well as Amenet, gives you sickness, he also gives you medicine, iduru, the cure. But what we would say, of course, in North America is the exact same thing. If Nyame gives you medicine, he also gives you iduru, or gives you hoodoo, gives you the cure. So, in the appendix of the book, we have our article, Akan, Origin of the Term Hoodoo. That was the first article we produced a couple of years ago, proving in the Akan language what the term Hoodoo means, where it comes from, showing it has nothing to do with the whites and their offspring. What we did with this book is show the connection to all of that to the same terms in ancient Kemet, and specifically Nubia Khanit, showing the Akan people, Khanit people, are the same Akani people from ancient Khanit, Nubia, into Ghana, Ivory Coast, and into America. And then we also, in appendix number 2, we have our article, Akhan, the people of ancient Khanit, ancient Nubia, Sudan, and we showed the Medutu proving that Khanit, or the Khan land, the Khanit land, Khanat land is Nubia, and it's the same as the term Akhan, and so forth. So, all right, so that is that's what we wanted to go over with regard to this publication. We didn't get a chance to go through all of the information in the comments in the chat room. So we just want to look through them kind of quickly. Just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. So we only have a few minutes left in the broadcast before it cuts off, and they'll cut off when you're in overtime. Just unceremoniously, they will just cut off the broadcast. So if you have any questions or comments about the information, send us an email through the website. Go to Odwirafo.com. You can go to the Contact Us section. You can send us an email there. You can also contact us on we have our own social media network, private, separate from Facebook, Afuraitkaitnut.ning.com. You can join that, create a profile and so forth, and we post blogs, discussions, videos, all of that information. People are interacting, black people from around the world studying the same kind of information. Of course, we need to have something outside of Facebook. Facebook shuts down groups, and especially if they're cultural groups and everything else. So we need to have our own thing as well, in addition to Facebook and Twitter and all of that. You can connect with us, Odwirafo on Twitter, Afurakanu on Instagram, Odwirafo on YouTube, as well as on Google+. So connect with us there. You can follow our show on the Blog Talk Radio. Click follow. That way, when we send out a mass email, you get the information every time anything is coming up. And follow us on YouTube as well. Anytime we post a new video, you'll be automatically alerted to that. You can follow us on Google+ as well as on Facebook. We are Afuraitkaitnut on Facebook. We just released this book 2 days ago on Kwesi. The ebook version, of course, is a free download. Please share the information. The softcover version is $9. We thank you to the few individuals who ordered already. All of our 16 books are available in softcover as well as ebook. You can download the free versions, which are the full versions. The entire books in the ebook format are free. And then in addition to, because our people don't always have the funds to purchase, but we can't hide this information, hold it for ransom. If somebody doesn't have $9, they can't learn about their culture. So All the ebook versions are free, but the softcover versions we do print in-house on our own printers in color. We do all of our publishing. We don't contract out anything to any third party. We do everything ourselves. So if you would like to support what we are doing, you can read the information for free. If you appreciate what you see, and if you would like to make a purchase, Yedase, we thank you for that. You can go to the Nhoma page, and we'll put the link here, Nhoma, on the website, Odwirafo.com. Go to the publications page. You can access the various books and so forth. And you can also, when you see our Akongwa Suya page, dealing with our institution, we are in the midst of a fundraising campaign on GoFundMe. If you go to that campaign, any donation you make of $15 or more, you will receive one or more of our books as, in receipt. So it's not just a free donation. You're just basically making a purchase of one or more of our books. When you make a donation, just in the note section or email us and let us know which one or more of our books you would like to receive for your donation. And Yedase for the individuals who have already contributed. We're trying to open up that center as soon as possible, secure that property and so forth. So any donation, of course, is appreciated, and we will send you one or more of our books. So you can get that information on the Odwirafo.com website as well, the link to the GoFundMe page, as well as just on the Akongwa Suya, the page with the talking about the institution, linking to the publications page as well, so you can go through and see the publications. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in. We will be back on tomorrow for Egua Marketplace. Connect with us on Facebook. We will be sending out a notification for that to give you the details about that, who's going to be on the show and what we will be discussing. So, connect with us. Follow us if you have not already done so. And Yedase, we thank you. And Yebeshia Bio, we will meet again.